Hello. Thank you for joining me. It's beautiful springtime here in rural PA. You get a look at my car here. Nice. So I have to take a trip just to get a couple little things for dinner. Trying to my sister-in-law and me trying to get dinner done before my wife gets home from work. So I have to run out to the local Dollar General and grab something real quick. Enjoying my Pennsylvania springtime here. So I figured I might as well talk to my internet friends. What's up, Grandma Cheryl? Thanks for being here. So for those of you who missed it, I was actually on the radios today for a couple hours. Me and my friend Carlos we're on 104.1 FM on my friend Todd Bartley's show. Just kind of discussing the absurdity of the reaction to this lockdown. So he's going to be editing that, and then if you missed it live, I should have some sort of link to that coming up. Hopefully tomorrow. So I'll try to get that in my channel. Todd's cool, I'm sure he won't mind. Or at least have a link to it. But it was a great discussion. Go off for about 2 hours just on how absurd this shutdown is. I might lose you for a second here coming up. Yeah, right. I know. The snow. What's up, Modus? Thanks for being here. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, these normal car side chats, sometimes I lose you because it's rural Pennsylvania. And we still don't have fancy pants things like solid internet connection. So, what I wanted to talk about real quick, I'm probably going to do a bigger video on this. Keep in mind, my wife gets off work here. I've been trying to spend some time with my wife when she's off work, so I've not been doing a lot of videos in the evening. I may make an exception today or tomorrow. This study came out from Stanford, and I'm trying to look over the entire thing before I do a video on it, but I'm not going to get through the whole thing before I do a video on it. So here's the upshoot. They took Santa Clara County in California, and what they did was they were one of the first groups that did randomized testing, and you've heard me talking about this a lot. Now keep in mind, I'm no medical expert, I'm just a layman, but the idea is this. We know that the death rate seems higher than it actually is because the only people currently getting tested are people that are afraid they have the coronavirus. So in other words, if you're exhibiting the symptoms, you go to a doctor, you say, I'd like a test because I'm afraid I might have this virus. That population, the percentage of those people that actually have the virus are going to be far higher than the percentage of people, those people that go, you're going to get a look at far more of them having a serious case of it and having higher mortality rates than the general population in general. Because we know that if it's more widespread, there are people that are asymptomatic, which means they haven't had symptoms, or their symptoms have been so minimally severe that they didn't even know they had the coronavirus. And if that's the case, it means that the virus is far less deadly than we were originally told. So this study was one of the first that did randomized testing, which is what we need. You don't want to just test people that are afraid they have the virus. You want to test random population. And the skinny of it is this. The study concludes, and this is the first study that's engaged in these randomized testing. Are you ready for this? That 50 to 85 times more people had the virus than the confirmed cases that we're basing mortality rates off of. Let that sink in for a minute. That means that the mortality rate that we are being told that we need, it's such a serious disease, is 50 to 85 times higher. It's lower than what they've actually been telling us. So think about this. If they test and they say, we've tested 100 people and 10 of them died from the coronavirus, that means that it has a mortality rate of 10%. They tested 100 people that had it. Of the 100 people, 10 died. 10 out of 100, 10%. But what if instead of just those 100 people, that it was actually 1,000 people that had the coronavirus? We back? There's always that one blind spot there. It's crazy. Anyways, so that's what we're talking about. If more people have the virus and many of them don't show symptoms and things like that, then it's not as deadly as we're seeing. 50 to 85 times as many people have the virus in this first randomized testing than we were told, than we had confirmed cases. Now, does that mean this test is the end all be all? No, absolutely not. And hopefully I do a full video on this where I could link the article and we could talk specifically about it together on screen. And of course there needs to be new testing, but this has been what people like me have been saying all along. It turns out that the virus is more widespread than we initially. Our station told us how great China was. Remember the experts at the CDC told us not to wear masks? The mask didn't help? That's the experts. So I'm not claiming to be an expert. What is this? Holy smokes, buddy. This guy took up 15 spaces. I'm gonna sit here like a lunatic in the parking lot rambling. You're gonna be like, what? What is this guy up to? But actually, I'm gonna wait until these people anyways. I'm trying to do, like, even though I think that the whole thing's overblown and things like that, I am trying to do my part. So if I see a bunch of people at the entrance here, that's why I came early. I'll leave them get in and do their business so I'm not right next to them. But anyways, so think of what this is saying then. What does this mean? One, it means the mortality rate's way lower than we were initially told. And that's important because if this study is correct and this ends up being the truth, that actually, because remember, the way we look at the mortality rate is we have the numerator, the top number of that fraction. And that number is how many people have died of the coronavirus. I've done video after video where I tell you, look, they're inflating those numbers. But whatever, even if we take the numbers, the 30-something thousand they're giving us, that's the numerator. And we divide that by how many people in total have had the virus. And because we haven't done random testing, we've just been going by the numbers that of confirmed cases. Well, this study in Stanford says that the numbers actually, in this first randomized study they've done, 50 to 85 times as many people had the virus than confirmed cases. That means it's directly 50 to 85 times less lethal. Because think about it, if that number, that denominator is 50 times greater than what we were told, that means the virus is 50 times less lethal. That's how it ends up breaking out. I'm not an expert on the math there, but you see what I'm saying. That puts the numbers down based on my calculations of what I've been looking and what this study says. It's basically as lethal as the flu. Do you get that? Is it starting to add up? So the mortality rate that we were told, oh, we have to collapse the economy. We have to take people's rights. We can't question it. That we have to listen to the experts. Well, we have our first randomized test. Is this going to make national news? Look it up. Santa Clara, the COVID test from Stanford University. Again, I'll try to get a link when I'm doing a video on this later and not just in the car. That's right, Grandma Cheryl. That's something that I've said the whole time. If we set the precedent now, who's to say next year during the flu season we don't say, okay, you have to use per capita statistics. Well, right. And that's what this study does. So they didn't test every single person in Santa Clara. They extrapolated out like you do with most of these tests and used for the whole population. If these numbers, I think they tested 3,300 people, right? So what that ends up showing is that the mortality rate of this ends up being about what the flu is, if these numbers are correct. Now, granted, we need more testing. But again, the default position we're being told is, if we don't know, then we have to shut everything down. If we don't know, then we have to revoke your protections under the Bill of Rights. That's the exact opposite of what it should be. If we don't know, we shouldn't be taking people's rights away. We shouldn't be intentionally collapsing the economy. So that's number one. Number two is, if the virus is that much more widespread than we were told, there comes a point where once the virus is out, that any sort of lockdown's irrelevant. It's not going to have any effect. It might slow down when people get the disease, but it's not going to stop the spread of it. And if you watch my radio interview today, you see that actually that was the response that Governor Wolf's Secretary of Health actually gave. Well, why can't rural Pennsylvania open? They've only had 3, 4, 5 cases confirmed. Well, it's because we know the virus is there already. Okay, well, at some point, if it's already there, despite the lockdown's not going to stop it anymore. And so then we come to the point where we say, okay, if this virus is 50 to 85 times more spread around than we originally thought, is the lockdown doing anything? Is it too late for the lockdown to do anything? And I talked about this, how there was a doctor that was interviewed on Ben Shapiro's show and also a doctor from Germany. And both of them talked about there's 2 different types of viruses that could have a big kind of death toll. One would be one that has a high mortality rate. So, some sort of virus that kills 30% of people that end up getting it. The way you deal with that virus is you try to lock everything down before it spreads. But that seems to not be what we're dealing with. COVID, it seems to be one that might kill a lot of people, not because it's incredibly lethal, but because it'll infect so many people. And with a virus like that, a lockdown will be ineffectual. It's going to spread anyways. We're to the point now, the excuse of, well, we can't overwhelm the hospitals, those days are done. Now they've moved on past that. They're saying, oh no, we can't reopen until there's not one new case. That's what Dr. Fauci said. This is absurd. So, where are the journalists? Todd Bartley, who I did this interview with, 104.1 FM out of Williamsport, is the only national journalist, well, maybe not the only, but the best national journalist I've seen in this, who's constantly asked these questions. What is the threshold? Why did you have this lockdown? What is the threshold for alleviating the lockdown? How many lives will the lockdown save? All of these types of, what models are you using? All of these types of questions. How long are people traditionally in the ICU units? When you say you need an ICU unit and you're worried about it getting overwhelmed, we're not just looking at, in totality, how many people end up needing it, but in totality, how long is each visit in the ICU? Right? Just because if we only have 1,000 ICU beds and we have 2,000 people that need them, but over what time frame is that? Do you need the ICU bed for 3 days, 5 days, 9 days? You see what I mean? He's asking those sorts of questions instead of just giving into the fear-mongering, which is fantastic. But other than that, you're not really hearing much of this. So, what was I told? Oh, you got to listen to the experts. You got to listen to the experts. Well, now we have experts that did the first randomized test, and it turns out that it spread far more than we were initially told, which means the mortality rate is far less, 50 to 85 times less than we were originally told. Are we going to listen to these experts, or are we going to cherry pick which experts we listen to? You know what the answer will be. They came up with a conclusion. As I said from the get-go, I'm not saying that COVID, to me, it looks like the numbers are all showing it's not much worse than the regular flu. But I don't know. I'll admit that. But what I said was, regardless if it's a real crisis or not, they will use it to their advantage. The corrupt people in positions of authority will use it to get more power. They'll use it to get a blank check that they could then funnel that money to them and their corrupt friends, just like that always happens. It's always the normal Americans that get screwed over. Every single time that we're told, oh, you have to sacrifice, you have to pull up your bootstraps for this sort of emergency. It's always us, the normal people, that suffer. It's the people that just want to be left alone by government. We're the people that suffer. And I was told by even conservatives, shut your mouth, Rob, or people will die. You just have to accept this. Well, if I just had to listen to those experts, what about these experts that did the first random test? We going to listen to them and say, okay, open things back up now? Of course not. They'll find another excuse. Now they're telling us, well, we knew all along just shutting down for 2 months wouldn't be enough. What did the governor of Maryland say yesterday? This would be the worst time to stop the shutdown. If we stop the shutdown now, it's like we never even had a shutdown. Of course it'll need to be more than 2 months. But that's not what they told us initially, was it? They refused to answer those questions. So what, after 4 months of a shutdown, are they going to say, of course 4 months isn't enough, we need 6 months? They're making it up as they go along. They're exploiting the crisis, whether it be real or not. And the numbers are being inflated left and right. This virus is far more widespread, which means, one, the lockdown isn't going to help anything. So we're just causing all of this economic pain and taking away people's rights for no reason. And second, it proves that the mortality rate is far, far lower than what they initially said. Now, granted, let me just say with the caveat, we need more testing. But this is the first test, and that's what it showed. So I'll try to be doing a video on this later. What do you think, Annabelle? No? So I gotta go ahead and get stuff for dinner here. Looks like people are leaving, so I'll be able to get in. Oh, we got one person going in. But yeah, I'll get in here and get this stuff. So I'll try to be doing some stuff, but look for me to put up that radio interview I had. It's about 2 hours, so it's a long one. But yeah, I might just put up a video that's not a live stream later about this Stanford business. But thank you everyone who's been following me. I really appreciate it. Please, if you haven't liked and subscribed, do that. Recommend me some other people, all that good stuff. Don't give me any donations right now. Keep your money to yourself. It's kind of a crazy time, so do what you have to do to get by with this situation. Dorothy, what are you doing? Oh, okay. So, all right, thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.